we've identified 5 distinct ways in which the CO2 in cars regulations will affect carbon emissions. Firstly, there is their intended effect to reduce in-use emissions in the EU. Secondly, there may be other jurisdictions which decide to follow Europe's lead and introduce their own in-use limits. Thirdly, a proportion of the car fleet manufactured in the EU to meet the limits will actually be driven in the rest of the world, pushing down average emissions in those countries. Fourthly, cars made in the rest of the world to meet the EU emission limits may nevertheless be driven in the rest of the world, decreasing average emissions. And finally, there will be changes in average embedded emissions as the balance of technologies evolves. We calculated the total in-use emissions for a series of future scenarios using this formula, which sums the fractional contribution of emissions from each vehicle on the market, where P is the proportion of each technology type, and IU is the average emissions, with both variables determined by technology and by vehicle age. The graph shows how 4 different scenarios lead to progressively lower in-use emissions over time in grams of CO2 per kilometre.